Hello everybody, in today's video I'm going to be doing another watercolor landscape painting, and this one I'm going to be a little bit more bold than I have usually, and I'm going to go with a bigger building and structure in this landscape painting that I've done, as I've only just started learning how to sort of incorporate buildings and stuff into landscape paintings, being confident enough with my skills that I want to start adding in other things. So this time I'm going to come in with a much bigger structure than I've done before and try and make it like more of a centralized piece to the whole thing. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start out by painting in the sky first. So now with the sky painted, what I'm going to do is I want to make this painting basically like a old ruined tower, like lookout tower or like keep that looked upon the expanse of the ocean. Here it's on the shoreline. That was sort of like this like guardhouse that would look out for enemy intruders coming and that sort of thing. But it's decayed and sort of broken down over time and become an old ruin, but it's still standing there looking out over the ocean in the distance. That's what I want to try and get across with the feeling of the painting anyway. One thing that I probably should have done with this painting, with the sort of theming that I was sort of going for here, is maybe I should have made the sky a little bit like a more grey and just a little bit duller, because I think overall this piece is probably a lot happier and like more vibrant than I was expecting. But that's one thing I'm still learning while doing the watercolor painting, is how to set moods and that sort of thing. Like the first time I actually sort of set a major mood in a painting was my last video, where I did a sunrise upon a lake, and I sort of gave it the feeling of a nice early morning, and had sort of like an atmosphere to it. My first time trying out that sort of thing, where so trying to incorporate that into pieces now that I'm doing is something that I'm learning. So when I came into this, I probably sort of thought about it a little bit more, that I wanted to try and make it look like it was old and destroyed, and making it like it's this tower's falling apart and has been sitting here over time, and giving it that sort of like somber feeling. Whereas I think maybe I am coming across it more like the land is nice and happy, and it still carries on going and looking beautiful even when this thing is being destroyed over time. That's possibly the feeling, I guess you could go with it that way. So interesting trying out different sorts of things like that, how just by adding in either more vibrant or duller colors can really change the mood of an entire piece, which is really cool and interesting, me finding out, learning from doing sorts of paintings and artwork like this. Something I've never really thought about too much before, but just when you look at a piece, once it's all done and completed, when you're trying to set a scene, having different tones and colors can really change the way things feel, which is really cool that you can do that so easily, and one thing I'm definitely trying to improve on and work on with my artistic journey. So now the other big thing with this painting that I'm doing here is to do that ruined tower. So I did just a very light, faint sketch. You may have seen slightly at the start, or as I'm painting over it, you might just slightly see the outline of it. It'll be very hard to see on camera, but I only need it to be super, super light, because watercolors are a very light medium, so you don't want to have too strong picture underneath when I'm doing sort of like naturalistic landscapes and all that. Having hard outlines, I think, would sort of ruin the piece a bit. So just using it as a guide outline and using my brush to convey most of the shape is what I need to learn. Very new to that, because I very much am a sketcher and drawing with pencils and pens and that sort of thing, rather than actually painting. So it's cool to switch up your style a little bit, and just trying to figure out how I want to do things, what sort of shape I need to make the castle, and realizing that I need to change brushes to get different points on it. Like I'm using a flat brush here to paint up the edge of this castle so I can get a nice even edge. When you have a round brush, it can sort of have the effect of bleeding, plus also keeping the consistency of the paint what you want it is another thing as well. learning that on painting, and especially watercolors, if you have a little bit of moisture on the paper as well, also affects it a lot. So it's really cool to learn a whole bunch of new things. And if you're new to watercolors like me, just simple things like that can really change up how a piece comes out. But cool thing about watercolor is it's definitely fun, and it's you know, you can slightly fix up some mistakes if you want to by dabbing on like a paper towel or something like that to clean up the brush, or just add more water on it until you can slowly lift it up, and it won't necessarily get rid of every bit of paint, but it will lift up a lot of it and basically let you start back from a relatively clean canvas so you can paint back over it. So that's been cool to learn over my last few water paintings, that I can sort of like slightly erase, so that's been cool as well. But like I was saying with the tower here, since this is my second time actually drawing a structure in a art piece like this, I wanted to really go a little bit bigger and bolder with it than my last one. Last one I made it like very off in the distance as a big, you know, tower castle that was sort of like off in the distance. So this one I want to make much more prominent, because I want to try and, you know, boost my skills, learn a little bit different, because, you know, I do want to do paintings of like urban sort of areas and all sorts of things like that. So getting a bit of practice in with that by making the piece more in the foreground, I think is going to help me out, as well as that gave me some cool ways to try and learn how to do textures of like bricks and stone. So that's been really fun and cool to learn as well. So one of the other things I wanted to try and do with the keep and like tower structure that I have here as well, give it a little bit more detail by adding in the bricks. Like I said, I want to try a little bit of brick texture, try and make it so you can see a little bit of the inside of it as well, since it's falling away, and also adding like a moss effect sort of growing over it once I get in the bricks and all that. Now, by all means, I'm no great artist or anything, so I don't know how realistic it's coming off, although I'm not going for like 100% realism, you know, I'm going for a fantasy sort of illustration, so that keeps it from needing to be 100% realistic. My saving grace, I guess. But trying to come up with ways to make it look like it is a realistic, you know, vibe, you know, tower that, you know, you can see the brick, you can clearly tell the story of this thing. Is something that was definitely tricky for me to learn as I was going in, constantly building up the paint, as you can see, trying to get it to look like that we're getting some sort of structure, because once I placed that color on, you know, it just looked like a flat brown castle thing shape there basically, and I needed to try and bring it, you know, to life a little bit more. So learning to add and build up colors more on paintings to try and bring out the texture and really add into some areas. And I wanted to try and tie it in with the land around as well. So you can see I've done like a little like nice rock face cliff in the distance, as well as that also like a mountain in the distance, so you can sort of see where they got the stone or rocks that they used to build this tower. Is the whole idea I was trying to go for here, that you can see like off in the distance, by trying to make them pretty much the same color. They can sort of like infer that, hey, maybe they got the building for this right there. As you can see, I spent a little bit of time off camera as well, adding on, building up more color. Now, some of it was off camera, some of it was also on camera, and it just sort of corrupted. So sorry for that, the bits that I did have corrupted and I wasn't able to recover them. So I wish I had been able to get a lot more of that, but you can see it changed a lot, and that was looking at some references of buildings helped me out a little bit, and how as well as that is like other watercolor painters and how they paint up buildings and add little details and bricks and things there to try and bring that a lot more. So I wish I had the footage there to show you of me slowly bringing it a bit more and more to life and making it look like it is a building that is there and useful, and not like more of a cartoonish piece, and bringing it to a little bit more life. But unfortunately, as you know, recording sometimes go. Sometimes files just corrupt and you forget to hit the record button and things like that. Unfortunately, this time, some of it, a little bit I'd done on off camera, some of it I had done on camera, and the files, I tried to restore them, but I just wasn't able to. So I just had to do the cut there and show you onto the step where I was doing the really right in front of the foreground here. And this is adding in little spots of color and greenery, making it on this nice green hill there, but I didn't want it to be entirely green, so I'm throwing in some yellows and some browns, and now I'm just coming in with a very fine point brush and just streaking it all along in directions to make it look like grasses and little bushes and things. Eventually I will come in with a lot of different colors and just build it up slowly. So basically what I'm doing is just constantly adding in little lines and adding in texture to the piece to make it look more and more like a realistic sort of grass effect, but using that under color to set the whole, you know, the base layer there to add on top of, so we've got a nice foundation to build up all these little blades of grass. This does take a little bit of time, but luckily it's not crazy hard brush strokes. I guess trying to make it look a little bit more realistic, one thing that I've definitely been learning lately is to not be so structural with it. You got to be more gestural with it. You know, you want to try to go with different sweeping motions rather than the same sweeping motion, because I'm more of a sketcher. I sort of try to go for nice sharp even lines, so I get very like more precise straight angled lines than naturalistic lines like that you would see in nature. So that's one thing I'm also learning as well, on top of my buildings and structures painting, is that I've got to be a little bit more loose with my lines and vary the weight that you're applying to with the brush, and also the length of each things when you're doing naturalistic things like blades of grass and leaves and that sort of thing. So that's been another fun thing to learn, but I think that's a little bit easier to learn than trying to make structures and buildings and that sort of thing. But I think with that we have come to basically the end of this painting here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the part where we can see how it came out in the end and see what it looks like. And so there we have it. With all that complete, we're finished painting up my watercolor landscape painting with that nice keep watching out over the shore, waiting for any invaders that it used to do when it was a nice impressive structure, but unfortunately now it has fallen to some ruin. So hopefully this video has been interesting for you, whether you want to use this video as some inspiration in your own painting and artworks, or you just want to follow along with what I did here and try to recreate it for yourself. But with all that said, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.